morning, Amyr.
Good morning, Simon. How are you?
Very good as always. Very good, thank you.
Excellent.
So,
Interesting topic today.
Well, I was going to say we were thinking about how complicated we should make the title, and we just came down to school fees planning.
Exactly. That's exactly how we get approached by our clients and prospective clients with the subject. So why not title this video in the exact same way?
Absolutely. Do you want to start, or should I?
Oh, no, happy to start, Simon. So, it's interesting that, of course, being a financial planning and wealth management firm in this part of the world, it's almost inevitable that we get a lot of clients who have got a vested interest in our case, really, because we're retirement planning experts. We get a lot of grandparents now that have got a vested interest in the education of their grandchildren, having already educated their children privately, perhaps. They're now thinking of ways in which they can help and or fully fund their grandchildren's school fees. So for us, one, it's a privilege to be a part of this conversation. I mean, talk about legacy planning. That is it, right? And seeing your grandkids being able to go through an amazing education, you being the person that's funding that, geez, it's lovely. It's a privilege to be part of that. And of course, it is an intricate subject. And in fact, especially our prospective clients, when they approach us about this, hey, do you guys help in your financial planning process? Do you help with school fees planning? They always come to us with a product they heard their friend bought from a bank, or a particular scheme that a particular school is offering. And it is quite noisy. And I guess what we wanted to do today, Simon, for the benefit of our viewers, is just to take a step back and look at what school fees planning actually is, what it entails, and just a few ideas and a few maybe sound bites for people to go and try to get rid of some of that noise and start researching this in a more efficient way.
Absolutely, because planning is the word to concentrate on. This is just another form of planning. So when clients bring these various products to us, which invariably have a beautiful glossy brochure with some pictures of kids in blazers on the front, they are really just a packaged product of one description or another. But actually, what it comes down to is funding, either from income or from capital or from a combination from the parents or grandparents in the most tax efficient way possible. And obviously then the term of the planning dictates the type of investments you should use.
Absolutely. And, let's start putting a price tag on this conversation to make it a bit more real. Okay.
Yep.
So I was looking at some numbers before we pressed record, which of course has completely put me off putting my kids through private school myself, but that's by the by. So if we look at day fees, the average day fee costs around our part of the country, we're looking at around $5,500 to $6,500 per term.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we think about a kid going through their schooling over a 13-year period, we're already heading towards £250,000 there to educate one child. And I'm not bringing in nursery in that conversation, because you can find private nurseries in, again, our part of the world and further into London, which will approach £30,000 a year. So the conversation is, how are we funding that cost in a financial planning scenario where, as you well described there, Simon, you have income and expenditure on a monthly basis, but you also might have lump sums that are earmarked towards covering this and other costs that one has in their lifestyle aspirations or lifestyle choice, which is imminent.
Yeah,
that's really what we're talking about.
And what we want, of course, is to make sure that those starting with school fees can actually continue to the end. And that's the planning element of it yet again, because what we don't want is for any potential clients is to start their children in private education and then realize that they just can't afford to continue.
Absolutely right. And there's a lot of financial planning threads that we could pull out of that one simple statement there, Simon, which I think our clients value, because again, it's all part of this taking a step back. So just one thread, for example, in that phrase that you said, we need to think about the rising costs of school fees over time, which we know just from looking at the historical data rises above inflation, and considerably so in period. So we need to be quite conservative into that school fees inflation assumption we're making to really get an idea of how much cash flow or how much withdrawals from lump sum we need to be able to keep that child in that private school throughout their educational years. Another thing that's worth thinking about is when we're looking at couples in their late 30s or maybe mid 40s who are cash flowing their kids through school fees planning is the personal risk management of, God forbid, them unexpectedly passing away or, you know, being diagnosed with a critical illness that means they can't keep earning the income they've been used to earning, and how that unfortunate scenario might derail that particular school fees plan part of their financial plan, and mitigating against that too. So again, I'm just throwing in here some seeds to plant in our viewers' minds. This is a bigger conversation than just the product or the trust or the school-specific scheme you've heard about. And financial planning really helps you build that picture so you can understand what the real cost of putting your child or grandchild through a private school education really is.
Absolutely. And what we do is with the lifetime cash flow plan, which of course we do for all of our clients, this is just a period of time where we know funds need to be introduced. And if the child has just been born, then clearly there's a fairly long time frame and monies can be invested. And, you know, just chucking out there the thought of some products, because mentally I was thinking, when I was thinking of the old brochure years ago of you know, the old blazers, what have you, in essence, what those products at the time were covering was a series of, we used to call them MIPS. They were in essence 10-year endowments. And so there would be a little diagram showing that if you invest now, 10 years time, little Johnny that'll pay for his first year of education, and then year 2, then year 3, year 3. Now, if we have that sort of time frame, then the parents can invest in ISAs, as a for instance. So there's a perfectly good product where each adult can invest £20,000 into their own ISA if they want to keep flexibility. There are also JISAs available, so junior ISAs, and it's kind of the term of the investment and the risk involved and how much we should hedge against inflation. That's very much dictated by, you know, how old the child is and how far in advance you need to start planning.
That's exactly it. You know, it's good old financial planning. And for this particular part, it's just that we're zooming in to one particular financial planning conundrum that that particular client would like to solve or have a plan for. And of course, there are other things to consider too, right? And nowadays, what we're seeing a lot of our clients say to us is that, you know, they aspire for their children to be able to live around this area too. And I say this area, of course, we're based in Kingston upon Thames. And of course, there are some great state schools available around our neck of the woods. So some of our clients have decided that instead of putting money towards funding private school fees for their grandchildren, instead they're helping their children get onto the property ladder in our neck of the woods, knowing that their grandchildren will have access to some good or even outstanding state schools that, of course, are, you know, are very much going in the right direction when it comes to pastoral care and support and the educational opportunities that they offer too. So the conversations that we have around this are, for me, way more fascinating than any sort of product or any sort of scheme, as I mentioned. And we welcome that. We really welcome having those conversations, sharing with clients the research that is out there from some of the best academic studies in the UK that we have around this, and also our own anecdotal evidence from the experience we're gaining week in and week out of dealing with these conversations inside our own firm.
One of the questions we're often asked, of course, is with regards to grandparents. And, you know, are trusts applicable? Now, obviously, it is very much dependent on the individual grandparent and what's available. But I'd say start with the basics, because the grandparents can actually fund what are called gifts out of normal expenditure. So if their investments, their pensions, etc., can be demonstrated to be in excess of their income, then they are perfectly entitled to fund the excess each year, either to the parent or directly to the school itself. And that's a very efficient way of both reducing their potential inheritance tax liability and funding school fees for their grandchild. Of course, if there's a lump sum involved, then there are options of trusts. Now,
absolutely,
this is probably not the occasion to go too deeply into the various trusts that are available, but safe to say that there are advantages of grandparents funding them, and there we should probably leave it, because we'd be very happy to talk, obviously, to any individual clients as to what options are available.
Absolutely. And I think, Simon, that's a great point for us to sort of wrap up this particular video on this particular topic. there are genuine financial planning opportunities around school fees planning. There are genuine ways which are fairly simple in nature, maybe not easy, but definitely simple, to be able to uncomplicate things, but still be tax efficient, still have the flexibility to be able to choose a particular school at a particular time, be efficient with regards to gifting, with regards to income and expenditure planning. For sure, there are very genuine financial planning options around all of that. I guess what Simon and I and our firm invite you, the viewer, to do is take a step back, have that wider conversation. It would be a pleasure if we could be involved in that conversation too, and then focus in and decide on the details afterwards, after you have the financial plan, to be able to, I guess, with peace of mind, be able to go into those details and actually figure out some of the mechanics of how to do this.
I couldn't agree more. I think we should call that a wrap, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again there.
Same here, Simon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.